Okay, hey guys. So today I'm going to be making dog food of all things. So I have a little dude who is losing most of his teeth. So he's having a hard time eating regular dog food. And the canned foods just really do a number on him. So I make this and it actually works really well for him. And he's tiny, so this lasts me for months. So I'll definitely be canning it. Let me introduce you to the little guy. Hey you, am I making you some food? Me and my wonderful winter wear. So basically all that this is carrots, turnips, eggs, sardines in water, no salt, bone broth, again, low sodium, no sodium if you can do it. Homemade's even better. I happen to be out, so I had to buy some. Rice, I like to get the long grain brown rice, basic cottage cheese, and ground meat. Whatever is cheapest is what I get. It doesn't really matter. This is turkey. The last time I did it, it was beef. Occasionally I've even gotten a really screaming good deal on like lamb or elk, and it's wound up being that. I prefer parsnips. The local grocers was out of parsnips and I'm out of parsnips. So carrots. Big deal going on is I've heard a lot of people say, well, you cook all your nutrients out of your food whenever you can them anyway. Not necessarily true. Most of your nutrients are lost in the aging process. Buying them from the grocery store instead of having them fresh, you will actually lose more nutrients day per day just by letting them sit. These are relatively fresh. The carrots I got from a local producer, greenhouse, same with the turnip. So I'm happy with those. Once you get them canned, you lose very little bit in the cooking process. I think it's about 20%. And then you have 5 to 20% of the various nutrients are lost over the course of time in a canned product. It's the same in a freezer product. It's the same pretty much anywhere. Over time, the value of the nutrients degrades. Which nutrients they are depends on which storage method you use. So yeah, anyway, you saw the size of the dog. I'm going to be using quarter pints. This should actually be an entire day's worth. It'll be morning and afternoon food for him. I have 2 other dogs, so I have to feed him separately. I don't make this for all of them just yet. I'm trying to get some really good prices overall to switch them all over to this. But for right now, it's just this little guy. So, a whole lot of extra information. Sorry about that, but I thought maybe you might want to be aware. We're going to clean these. I'm not going to actually cook any of this stuff ahead of time, because it is going in here. I don't mind if it winds up as a solid piece. I'll cut it up later. Generally, if you're trying to can a ground meat, you're going to want to cook it ahead of time. Some people boil it. I don't particularly care for the texture of boiled ground meat. Instead, I'll brown it and then drain the excess grease off so that that's not in what I'm cooking. In this particular case, however, I kind of want that extra grease for the dog, and I don't mind cutting it up whenever I drop it out of the jar later on. So it can be all one big piece, right? Same reason why I don't mind the eggs being overcooked and all of that good stuff. He really loves apples. Sometimes I add one in, sometimes I don't. Doesn't really matter. It just adds a little bit of difference to the flavor, a little bit of difference to the nutrient value. The same occasionally whenever we're really cold, I'll add a little bit of molasses. And the molasses is just to give him a little bit more energy to be able to burn while he's shivering to keep himself warm. So as you all know, whenever you get fresh carrots, particularly, they're dirty. We got a lot of mud and other various nice dirt off of them. Most botulism, yes, I said the B word, and other such nasties are carried in the skin, but also most of the nutrients are carried in the skin. A lot of people will say you must peel your carrots or your other root vegetables. Not true, but you do need to scrub them really well. So I'm getting ready to scrub these and the turnips, and give them a good chop, and then I'll be. All right, so I've got the turnips and the carrots and the rice mixed in this bowl, and I only did half a pound of rice. I really don't like to add a whole lot in. Why even add any? Yeah, it's questionable. If you don't want your dog to have grains of any sort, it's certainly not going to hurt them to not include it. I just like the extra roughage. I think it helps his digestive tract a little bit. The same reason why I even bother to put vegetables in a dog's diet is because the nutrients that they get from the vegetables, the roughage that they get from it, it just helps with the digestion. So next I'll be mixing in all of the sardines and the cottage cheese. These were 2 for 1, so I got 2. I'm only going to be using one of them. It's the 1 pound 8 ounce cottage cheese. This is basically a pound of carrots, a pound of turnips, half a pound of rice, and then I'll be adding the 1 24 ounce container of cottage cheese. Small curd is what I use. I've got 5 eggs I'll be putting in a day. Sometimes I put in more, sometimes I put in less, depends on how friendly my girls are feeling that day. And then I'll be putting in 2 pounds of ground turkey, and that should be it. So you guys don't need to be watching me stir ingredients. So from now until then, since you know what all is going in here, I'm just dumping it all in the bowl. I'll be mashing it all together. Yes, because I'm putting it in such a small container, I'm mixing it all at once instead of the larger containers. I like to weigh them to make sure that all my ingredients are the same across the board. So if I pick up a beef stew, I've got the same weight meat, the same weight parsnips, the same weight turnips, the same weight whatever in it. I will be able to speak in a minute. Onions, all of that. I just like to keep it uniform. But when it's a 1/4 pint, it's 4 ounces, guys. It's really hard to try and measure each of this in individually, and I'm just not up for that aggravation. So I mix it all together. It means that some will have more of one thing than another. Guys, I don't do this to sell, so I don't have to worry about what my percentages are whenever it goes in. It is going to be what it's going to be whenever I serve it to him. Over the course of it, it will be perfectly fine. So let me get all this mixed up, and then we'll get to the canning process. Yes, this needs to be pressure canned. You can water bath can for 3 hours instead of 90 minutes. I really don't like waiting around 3 hours for my water bath whenever I've got a pressure canner, so I'll be using my pressure canner. And it's not actually 3 hours on this because this will be 60. It'd be about probably 2.5 hours that you would need to water bath can it just to be sure it's cooked all the way through and sterilized all the way through. That's the other thing. You see me handling my jars like this. When you pressure can, as long as they're clean, which these are, and my hands are, as long as they're clean, they don't need to be sterilized. Believe it or not, I mean, I've known this for years because of my family, but the big brother in the sky who likes to tell us all the things that we can't do actually agrees that as long as they're clean, whenever you're starting out, if you're going into a long duration, anything over 10 minutes in a water bath or pressure canner, you don't have to sterilize your jars first. So they're not getting sterilized. They are clean. They have been cleaned, but they're just going to go in just like they are. I'm not going to be overly concerned about keeping everything in a perfectly sterile setup. Okay? Okay, so at this point, your mix is pretty liquidy. You see this? But what we're going to do, this is everything except for the meat in here right now, okay? We've got the sardines, we've got the eggs, we've got the turnips and the carrots or parsnips or whatever. You know, some people use green beans, some people use greens. Just be sure that you check the nutritional value of what you've put in here, okay? And then we've got the bone broth. Now, I'm going to let this sit, and I'm going to let the rice absorb and swell, okay? And I'll put this in the refrigerator so that it can just absorb this. And then probably in about 30 minutes or an hour, I'll come back and I will add the
the ground beef, it's turkey today, the ground turkey, and then we will get started with actually putting up the food.
Okay, yeah. So, here's where we're going to have a talk. This, as you know, on my channel, I say very clearly, I don't really follow or adhere, whatever word you want to use, the USDA or the National Center for Home Preservation or anything like that in the US. Their guidelines, I use them as a nice reference, but I've done for so many years, you know, my family, my friends' families have canned, and as long as the science holds, I go ahead and do it whether it's been tested or not. So as you'll notice in this recipe, there are eggs and there's cheese. There are a lot of people who don't want to can that because it's frowned on by the USDA. That's fine. You don't have to can this. Now, this is an awful lot of food to not can, but what you can do is you can just cook it in the oven, put it in your little jars, you know, whatever size you want, and put it in the oven and cook it. As I haven't done that, I'm not sure how long it takes for it to get fully cooked all the way through, okay? I would recommend putting it in probably about 325 and letting it cook. If you're in a pint jar, probably letting it cook for at least an hour. You're going to want to test the internal temperature and make sure that you're hitting the temperature of whatever meat it is that you're using. Poultry is a different temperature than beef, than lamb, than pork. So reference your temperature guides, use your temperature gauges, make sure that the center of that, not the edge, the center winds up at the temperature you need it to be, and then pull them out, cool them, and put them in the freezer. Me, I can them, so that's what we're getting ready to do. I have got the meat fully combined in here. It takes quite a bit of stirring. I tend to do it more like a fold than a stir. This is still extremely liquidy. That's okay. I've got 5 eggs in this. It's going to be liquidy. It's not as liquidy as it was. The rice has absorbed quite a bit of it. Don't forget the rice is going to continue to expand and absorb. So you're going to get grease, especially if you're using beef or anything with a high fat content. So if you are, leave quite a bit of headspace, right? This is turkey, and it's also low fat turkey. So I'm not going to have as much fat to worry about. So I'm probably going to come right up to the bottom of the threads, maybe down just a little bit from there. There's not a lot of food in here. Don't forget, it's a 3-pound dog. I don't need a whole lot. I do single serving sizes for him so that I'm not taking up space in my refrigerator. I pop it open, that's his food for the day. Again, you can do it in pints, you can do it in half pints, you can do it in quarts. Yes, you can do it in quarts. If you do it in quarts, you're going to want to go full-blown 90 minutes because it is meat. These are quarter pints, so I'm going for 60 minutes instead of 75 or 90. So I'm going to fill these, and then they're going to go in my pressure canner. Unfortunately, I've only got 2 rings, so I need to get more because I could stack, 4 high. But because I've only got 2 rings, I can only go 2 high, so it's going to take quite a while for them to be done. When I get these filled, so I'm just going to fill them like so. I don't even bother getting a ladle for this because these are such small jars. So right there, let me bring it over to you so you can see. You see where I'm coming is right here at the bottom of the ring, right? That gives plenty of room for rice expansion, for any kind of grease that I'm going to have. I'm wanting to try to avoid siphoning. Siphoning happens as long as you don't get solid particulate between the sealant and the glass, you're okay. Yes, I clean these. with vinegar before I put the lids on, just like any other canning. All of the rings will get, all of the rims will get cleaned with vinegar, and then I'll put the lids on and I'll process them. If you get solids between the seal and the rim, it may seal, but it won't stay. I've found similar issues with siphoning, especially with grease siphoning. If you have grease siphoning, your seal will come. Just use it first, because they don't last as long, right? I've found that they may last about 6 months. Sometimes they'll even go upwards of a year. But 6 months is the most common for that seal to wind up giving way if you've got an oil seepage while you're processing. So be cognizant of that. If you're unsure, give yourself a little bit of extra headspace. These things are small enough that going at 60 minutes, you're gonna get your full vacuum, even if you give it more headspace than what I showed you, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and fill the rest of these up. I'm gonna get them in the canner, get them processed and out, and then once they're out, they'll take a look at how well they processed, if we had seepage or not, and then I'll pop one of them open and show you what the cooked and final product looks like. Okay.
All right, we are out of the pressure canner. We've got 40 quarter-pint jars of dog food. And here's a little toasty, but I think I can pick it up. Here's what it looks like in the jar, okay? You see it's pretty much solidified. We're getting nice pings all across the board. There went one. And so let's open one up and see what it looks like. This one hasn't sealed, so it's a good one to go ahead and open. And there's what it looks like, all cooked up, okay? And then I'm gonna have to use the fork to get it out, so give me 1 second here. See what I can do. There we go. So it'll come out like this. It breaks apart very easily. And it is actually 2 servings for my little dog, but for a dog the size of my other 2, Ollie, oh, there's Kirby, show you my other 2. For each of them, this would be a full-size serving. Isn't that right, Ollie? Yeah. Of course, the ultimate is the taste test. And as you can see, it passes the taste test. We're good to go. Recall that I told you guys I was going to let you know about the vinegar and how it was going. And this is it. It is really getting a gorgeous color to it. You see that? The spring in here, which is the whole reason I got this jar, because I generally like to use, this is what I'll use generally, like whenever making vinegars or mothers or something. It's just a piece of cotton cloth hot glued onto an old ring. Works great. But I wanted the spring on this, so I had, you know, an understanding of exactly how well it functioned if I wanted more of them. I want to see if I can't find more of those springs, because that's really all I want out of this whole thing. It seems to be working well. It's got a great smell. It's still only in the water stage, but you see how they've plumped up? Nice and plump. There's no mold, no mildew, none of the nasty stuff that you start seeing sometimes on your vinegars. So I'm very happy with how it's turning out so far, and it's looking promising.